In our 10th episode, Brandon and I explore the 7th manager intelligence skill, Innovative. You will learn what the skill is, why the best managers have honed and developed it, and some practical tools you can utilize to develop this skill to lead strong. Let's dive right in.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Leading Strong, the place to be to level up your leadership effectiveness on one of your most important roles, engaging your employees. Managers are responsible for at least 70% of their employees' engagement. The best managers, like you, lead strong by constantly honing and developing the skills needed to keep their teams engaged. Your hosts, Darren Veresamy and Brandon Miller, are the co-founders of 34 Strong, a company that creates great places to work. Their team has worked in Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and small businesses to lead strong. Now over to Darren.
Welcome to Season 1 of Leading Strong, where we will dive deep to grow your manager intelligence. I'm your host, Darren Veresamy, here to serve you in your continued discovery and growth to lead strong. This episode of Leading Strong is brought to you by 34 Strong, where organizations just like yours become great places to work. To find out more, check out 34strong.com. Hey, Brandon, welcome.
Thanks, Darren. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we've been having just such a blast going through these episodes, unpacking these manager intelligence skills. And today, we're going to be kicking off, we're going to be talking about this skill of innovative, right? And it's so often, like some of these other skills, but so often we hear these words and it's so easy for us to think, well, I'm not innovative or I'm not that. Some people are just born that way. And for those of you tuning in for the first time, what we're going through with each of these skills is identifying them as actual skills and how you can grow them. And a lot of times the way that we grow them, first of all, is removing our limit of how we even think about these. So when we think of innovative managers and how they're able to lead strong, they're able to get the best from their team and strengthen their team's resolve. And it's not a function, right, Brandon, that they always know everything in the space of how to be innovative. They're these brilliant strategic thinkers. It's actually about the fact that they create an environment where people can be innovative, where that team can be innovative, where they can try new things, come up with fresh ideas. And there's some different tactics on how we can develop that, regardless of how innovative you feel you are or are not as a leader. And we're going to be unpacking that today. And as always, I always love to just jump right in, Brandon, just kind of hear when somebody's on a team and they are being led by a manager, by a leader that has this skill. What's it like to be a part of a team that's like that?
Well, in a word, it's collaborative. So this style of leadership where a manager wants to hear the ideas of their team member. They don't feel the pressure to have all of the answers. They don't feel the pressure to have to solve all the problems. And some of us get caught in that vortex. For some reason, we believe that being promoted to a management role or being in a leadership position requires that we have that. And we've coached many managers, Darren, that tell us they would prefer for their teams to use their own brains when solving challenges instead of coming and knocking on their door. And what we counsel them is, well, you have to give them permission to do that. You have to create a space by which they feel safe to share. And it's okay to take that risk and put their idea out there. And if you create that space, what you've done is you've increased the innovative capacity of your entire team, because now you have the synergy of like minds. You have the synergy of even allowing for contrarian viewpoints and healthy conflict and finding that place of resolve that leads to the best outcomes.
I think it's really important what you're saying there is it's the environment of being an innovative that's so critical. And it's really important to just unpack something that Brandon just said there. Sometimes we have to look in the mirror and say, who are we being that's causing our people not to be innovative, right? If we've set up an environment where everything runs through us as the manager, as the leader of a team, and we have to give that rubber stamp of approval, sometimes we're actually the ones that are responsible, right, Brandon, for having conditioned the behavior that we most don't like, that actually drives us the craziest as we're going through. So it's really important for us to take a look and ask, who are we being that's actually created this environment? And we're going to take through some ways like we do in each of these in season 1, where we've been unpacking these manager intelligence skills. We're going to give you some ways to kind of break up that thinking that you'll be able to apply immediately over the course of today's show. We always love to give a book recommendation in the process. There's this great book by Travis Bradbury, Dr. Travis Bradbury, called The Seagull Manager. Brandon and I have had some great laughs about this over the years of developing 34 Strong on our own, because at times I know I've definitely been a seagull, where you fly in, you drop the orders like a seagull would do, and then you fly away and your team feels like a seagull just dropped a mess on them. Tell us a little bit about this book, Brandon.
Well, if you haven't done it, you're not asking around, because I guarantee any of us in a leadership role, we encounter a situation that's difficult, crisis, and sometimes it's just because we're impatient. So we come swooping in, and now we're just dumping orders. We're dumping formulaic advice. Do this way. This is how I want it done. And in reality, it's just a command and control style that says, I want it my way, and that's it. Get it done. Now, there is a time and a place for command and control. We know that. And yet, what we advise most of us as leaders is reserve it for the most intensive situations. Seagull managers do this by habit, and what team members learn, because remember, we learn over time with repetition. So once something has been repeated multiple times in front of us, we have come to understand this is just the way it is. And where we go to with this is we now have said to our team, just do what I say, the way I say it, how I want it. And that leaves team members feeling like, fine, you want me to just be compliant? I'll give you that. But you won't get commitment from me. I won't go above and beyond your order. I won't take the risk to try something to solve a problem. And now we've actually doubled, tripled our work, because now we're having to pick up the pieces of where the innovation of our team could have taken us.
Yeah, and this sometimes leads us into this path as managers, right, Brandon? Because we're being a seagull, then we revert back to the knee-jerk, highly unhealthy response of, I'll just do it myself. If it needs to get done, my team doesn't know what they're doing, my people don't know what they're doing, they don't get what I'm actually expecting of them. And it's really not a function of they're not capable of understanding that. It's just the way in which we're approaching that, setting expectations, going through, and it just creates that revolving wheel. So we're creating that environment sometimes and actually shutting that down. And that can really be messy. For those of you that are tuning in and thinking through this, if you haven't heard of this book or this whole concept of the Seagull Manager, you know, one of the great qualities that the best leaders share in common is that they're self-aware. It's a great opportunity for you to just reflect right now in this moment and just think, where do I lie? If I were to rate myself on a scale of 1 to 5, where do I lie? Have I been a seagull manager? Have I had that tendency? Have I worked through it? What are some of the challenges that I've had in that space? And just take an honest look and think of where you're at and how you are doing in regards to that one. When we think of the skill of innovative, and we always like to look at each of these skills and unpack what some of the highs and some of the lows are. So what do they look like when they're on the high level, and what do they look like when they're on the low level? Because we all have a different capacity to show up in these particular skills. We always like to just identify a couple of key words when we're thinking of a manager that's really leading strong and they are innovative. Some of the key words that come to mind when we're thinking about them are inventive, creative. They're a risk taker, cutting edge even. Sometimes they're an idea generator or imaginative. And here's the thing, if those are not the words that describe you personally as a manager, as you're leading strong, you've created an environment where these are the key words, how people would describe the environment that you're going through. Brandon, can you take us away on some of the highs and the lows and what that looks like for the innovative leader?
Absolutely. If you're a 5 out of 5, so you would strongly agree, I'm innovative, not only because you might be a creative, inventive, artistic, out-of-the-box thinker, and that's great, but you know that you cultivate that from your team. You could tell us today, if we asked, who your most creative types are on your team, and who are the types that are less than that. They're more of your doers, who are your deep thinkers. And so you have facilitated a culture that brings collaboration as a priority. So it's not an afterthought. It's not an every once in a while. You're challenging your team to think and to share ideas. So that's a 5. Now on the low end, this is where we start to push down ideas. We don't necessarily want the disruption because new ideas can be quite disruptive. They will challenge status quo. They will look at the way we've quote unquote always done things and push us forward. So on the one end, this is either a new way of thinking about how to manage, or naturally, you're not inclined to want to hear new ideas. You're very much a formula type of leader. You determine your path and you drive that forward. We would love to share with you great news. You don't have to be the inventive, creative, out-of-the-box thinker. To be a 5 in this, you're facilitating it. You're allowing innovation. You're creating a space. And we will tell you today, this will enhance the engagement of your team members and increase the performance of your team.
On that note, Brandon, for listeners tuning in, if you are a formulaic type leader, and that's been what has led to success for you individually as a leader, is it fair to say that you can create the formula that can allow for this process to take place where you're creating a space for people to innovate? Would you agree with that? Is that correct interpretation of this skill?
I sure hope so, because I'm definitely one who likes to come up with a system and stick to it. And the great things about these skills as we unpack them, Darren, is, and what you and I have had to learn, is that they can be taught. We can add to our knowledge some experience that we can practice, and we can improve these skills. So for those of us that we like to set in place processes that work, why break something that is accomplishing an outcome? And this isn't a call to disrupt for the sake of disruption. This is to allow for that creativity, ingenuity, to bring forward new concepts, new workarounds, the hack reality that we can find. And so I think that's a great point, Darren, that we're having standard operating procedures is smart. It's a good way to do business, but so is creating an innovative space and growing in this skill.
And we always want people to lean into your natural talents, your natural strengths. We're very, very much strengths-based in our focus and the way that we've led and grown 34 Strong. And that's the whole point of this, is if those hallmarks, those standard operating procedures are there, you can create a process that allows for innovation to actually thrive. And you're facilitating that conversation, asking questions. Maybe that's where your mind shows up, but people embrace that process. That's been a huge arc for us at 34 Strong, how we've built this company and how we've built out programs when we get to designing new programs that we're getting into. So that's been huge for us. This is a great quote. We love to always just share at least one quote over the course of these episodes. We have been huge fans of Brené Brown's work. And I think part of the integral partnership with the word innovative is the word failure. And Brené Brown said, there was no innovation and creativity without failure. And we have to remember the word fail, and you'll hear me say this, you hear Brandon say this frequently, but fail, the acronym for it is first attempt in learning. So part of that creative process is getting us to a place of where we can fail, because that's where innovation goes. When we look at this quote though, Brandon, what does it mean when we're leading an organization and allowing people to fail? How does it connect the dots between innovation, creativity, and failure? Because sometimes when we're leading, it can feel like, I can't fail at this, right? I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. We can't afford to fail. Can you help unpack this a little bit when we're leading an organization or leading a team, when we have this mindset that we've been told failure is not an option?
Some have said there is no greater teacher than to fail. There's no greater point where we learn and we can take back to our space a place of understanding. And now I know a way that won't work, or a path that doesn't lead to the outcome we want. And sometimes as leaders, we feel like because our reputation is at stake and we can't allow our team members to fail because that reflects on us. However, with introspection and with understanding, we learn to appreciate the reality that we do actually need to give people room to try and to attempt and to give things a space to where they could succeed, and we would celebrate this, or not succeed and we would learn from it. And in that space, of course, we measure, count the cost, we look at the risk, we look at the ramifications, but this sort of culture gives way, gives room to invention. There is no invention that exists today that did not go through substantial trials, substantial testing and retesting to make sure that what we have will work. And so in that reality, it does allow us to perhaps increase our threshold for recognizing the power and the value of giving room for failure.
Remember, each of these skills that we are looking to hone and develop as we're unpacking manager intelligence, these skills in season 1 here, remember, they're just a function of habits that we're creating in decisions. And we have to remember this in life and in leadership. To lead strong, first we must create our habits, and then our habits create us. So Brandon's talking about here, when we get into innovation and creativity without failure, we have to have failure to be able to be creative and to innovate. What are the little things right now that you're working with on your team that you can give somebody permission to fail at? What's something that you can just let somebody have ownership, they can fail at, and you can get comfortable as a leader if this is something that you're wrestling with? What's something just really micro that you can allow that to take place? Because it's going to start building that habit to allow this to go through. And the fascinating part, right, Brandon, is the more that this becomes accepted in the culture, as we get into 5 key takeaways that we're going to talk about how we can actually get the best from our team and strengthen our team resolve, is that when we're looking at this and we're allowing failure to take place, when people aren't actually stepping on eggshells around it, you can move through the failure to learning to growth cycle actually much, much faster, because there's less time hiding in the closet trying to protect, oh, I failed at this, and trying to justify that. It's accepted, you move through it, and then you're onto the growth cycle. So you actually close that gap much quicker. And that's going to play into how innovative managers get the best from their team and strengthen their team resolve as we're going through. Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about these? We've got 5 key points here we're going to talk about. I'm going to just share it for our listeners. The culture of courage, a culture of creativity, a culture of collaboration, a culture of cooperation, and a collegial culture. What do you mean by a culture of courage? What do we mean by that?
Well, when we think about the word culture, we're really talking about shared values with any partnership, group, team, organization. And shared values are something that, when repeated, can give a place where we ground. It's where we set our feet down. We know this is what we stand for. This is why we're gathered. This is what we're doing. So in interjecting courage into the culture is the reality that we confront fear. We push past failure. We know that there is no innovation without risk. It requires that. And a culture of courage says we want to take risk, measured, calculated, reasonable. We're not just trying to do something that could be reckless. Instead, we're repeating, we want courage to overcome challenges in the face of crisis, to do what it takes to advance. And so that idea of culture, Darren, as you know, at 34 Strong, we've really tried to bake into our existence to make sure that we have a team that knows what we stand for. And so we repeat it often. We share often why we are here, what we do, and then this is what we ground to as a team to know how we're going to get there.
Yeah, this is important. One of the things Brandon said there is just pushing right past the point of failure and going through. And we seem to understand this in our culture, in mainstream culture at least, in the lens of how artists have been successful, in the way that musicians have been successful, in the way that sports athletes have been successful. Muhammad Ali, I'm going to butcher this quote, but he had said something along the lines of, it wasn't the first push-up that mattered as much. It was the 60th or the 70th push-up. That's where the real growth broke. Right when he was at the point of failing that he pushed through, that's where that real growth took place. It didn't feel great when he was on that 70th or 80th push-up, whatever it was at, but that's where you push through, and then tomorrow 80 might become 81. And it's that progress that allows us to have that J curve of exponential growth. And we can develop these skills and go through that. Any of these skills that we're talking about. We also want to think of how we're applying them to ourselves in being courageous. Tell us a little bit about a culture of creativity, Brandon.
So this is everything we've been mentioning up to this point, where we are looking for solutions that we have not thought of. We're looking for the inventive, the out of the box, all of the euphemisms we can throw at you here for creative thinking. And that process is facilitated. So whether that's mind mapping or sending someone on a thinking walk, or go and do a mapping or planning retreat, all of this becomes part of the process around we will spend the time it takes to think through and to plan and to challenge ourselves so that when we come back together, we're hearing an array of ideas. We have a buffet of brilliant ideas to choose from because we've curated this culture of creativity.
And it is a function of creating processes where that can happen, right? So if we're having like a retreat, or if you're going through having an ability to just kind of think through, it's starting with giving people permission. There's no wrong ideas. For somebody can throw something on the table and then we're able to say, let's just explore that, see where that goes, and be fully willing to dump it. But that allows people's opinions to actually count. And that leads in to point number 3, which is a culture of collaboration. Creativity builds into collaboration, but we have to have like the operating principles of what creativity looks like in our culture to foster a culture of collaboration. Share a little bit more about that, Brandon. What are your thoughts on that?
I love the idea and the understanding of collaborative leadership. It's the anti-top-down command and control. It's very authoritative, so it thinks in terms of hearing ideas, challenging, debating, giving room to allow for us to make decisions together with the understanding that as the manager, the leader, the person in charge, I will make the final call, but we have had all voices heard. And when voices are heard, they buy in. And we can't ask for more than a bought-in team that's going to move forward in what you'll talk about next, which is cooperation. Now we're cooperative. Now we are pitching in. We're watching each other's back. We're giving a hand because the results are us, our results, not mine or your results.
Yeah, and when we look at this here, people feel safe to put their ideas forth. And it's not a function, as Brandon mentioned there, that everybody's agreeing on things when we build a bridge from collaboration to cooperation. You might discuss things passionately and stay completely respectful, right? So we become fascinated with somebody else's ideas as opposed to frustrating, because it's not a function of winning that my idea is better than yours. In these cultures where collaboration and cooperation are high, it's not that everybody's agreeing. It's that there's a willingness to step into the process, get a little messy, working through it, and we come out because everybody's arguing or working to give rise to the best idea to move forward in that place, and completely willing to put their ideas out there and lay down their sword because we realize we're not battling with each other in those places. I think, Brandon, our partnership over the past, it's going to be a decade before we blink here in the next couple of years here. But in 34 Strong, you and I have been able to talk very candidly, very openly back and forth about different ideas. And it's never a function of argumentative. It's always been a function of, let's look at the big picture of what we need to consider to get there. And having that safety, feeling safe where we can do that. And it's not going to be you're pushing somebody into a corner. We're actually working to pull out those ideas to find where that common ground, where that cooperation can be. Tell us a little bit more about the culture of cooperation, which is point number 4 as we built into it. You've started to kind of give some hints into it, but tell us a little bit more about that.
I think it's captured in the word unified because this allows for us to function as a team, not a collection of individuals. Cooperative cultures are ones that do look for ways that we support, we complement, we build up. And so it is the opposite of rivalry factions, us versus them, even within our own team, because we're not clamoring for who gets the credit, who gets the up, the attaboy, the pat on the back. This is, we share success. And so this will be expounded more when we get into the skill of interdependence. But in these cooperative cultures, you are shining in the brilliance of a full team effort to get to the outcome you're aiming toward.
Yeah, and there's this great African proverb that's at the core of what we do at 34 Strong. It's if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go with others. But we have to bring that together and pull that together. And that leads us to point number 5, which is a collegial culture. And this is not a function of this just happens once on a Thursday in the month of October. It's a function of this is the culture. Again, these are the habits, right? Culture, in many ways, are the habits, the ways that we operate amongst each other, that people are showing up and how they're feeling and interacting with each other. What does a collegial culture look like, and what's in the core of those habits, Brandon?
With a word, it's fun. We enjoy ourselves. We laugh. We can joke. We can create inside language, inside jokes. We can genuinely enjoy eating together, enjoy talking about each other's situations, life, and with ever increasing intimacy, because it allows for us to share a space. And this is what people are designed to do. We are designed to live communal. We're designed to form a tribe. And the more time we spend together and the time that we are in the trenches and we're accomplishing things, the closer our bonds become. This is natural. It's not something you have to necessarily overly encourage because it will happen on its own. It's part of our biology. And so in a collegial culture, you pick it up before the meeting is starting, the banter, when we're having a meal, the laughing, the enjoyment. And when we're working together, you genuinely see people smiling and finding themselves in the midst of the work, still engaging around, hey, I like my team members. I support them because we are working together to get to that outcome.
Yeah, those are such critical pieces as we're going through. And we're getting close to wrapping up today's episode on Innovative. And one of the things that I just want to make sure that you're thinking of as you're growing your own leadership so that you can lead strong, as you're thinking of how you grow your skill of innovative, how are you showing up to create a culture of courage? What is it that you've done in your work life? Maybe there's other areas of your life that you can think of. How are you growing courage in your life? What are the things that you're willing to just push right past the point of failure on? How are you showing up to create, point number 2, a culture of creativity? Or what are the signs of that are alive right now, currently in your culture? Are there people that naturally seem to lean towards that in your culture, in your organization, or in your team? Maybe talking to them a little bit more. How they've sparked that can be part of the creative process. Same with collaboration. What's your measure on that? How collaborative do you feel your team is? And what are you doing to show up to create that culture of collaboration, cooperation? And what does your ideal collegial culture look like in thinking about that? So we've got a little bonus for you as we're wrapping up today that we want to share with you, which are just our 34 strong values. We put a lot of time into capturing these, and maybe these can spark some ideas for you. And we really simplified these to 3 key areas for us as we define these in our organization. And we repeat these actually before every single team meeting. And then we close out by asking the question, who are we and what do we do? So the 3 values that we share are strong spirit, grateful attitude, and courageous heart. And Brandon and I didn't just come in with an iron fist and say, these are our values. That whole innovative process, our whole team sat down, came up with these values. Right, Brandon? That was quite a fun process. That was Brandon's birthday gift, actually, a couple years ago, right? We sat down and we facilitated through this to really identify this on his actual birthday a couple years ago. And these have really stuck with us and they've embodied our team. When we think of strong spirit, what it means to us, what our team built, what they decided is strong spirit. Under that, it goes like this. We play to our strengths, we stay resilient, and we strive to be our best. For grateful attitude, we treat others as they want to be treated, validating the contributions of others and recognizing their needs, and we celebrate the journey. For courageous heart, we play the infinite game and bravely solve the problems ahead. And to Brandon's point about collegial, about having fun, we don't take ourselves too seriously. That's been what we came up with. And when I say we, I mean that completely. 34 Strong came up with that. It wasn't just Brandon and I going through that. And that process of just thinking about what an innovative culture, the values that you embody, what that looks like, that can be innovative as well and kind of going through. So Brandon, as always, thank you so much for your insights as we are going through and wrapping up today. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to take a look back at any of our past episodes if you've missed those, and we will catch you next week. Remember, we are back next Wednesday. Every Wednesday, new episodes are out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. If you want to continue your growth in Leading Strong by hanging out with others committed to Leading Strong, join one of our LinkedIn or Facebook groups by looking for the Leading Strong Show. The truth is, organizational results like productivity, profitability, and low employee turnover rise and fall based on employee engagement. The world is starving for strong leaders as they not only impact an organization's performance, they create massive influence on an employee's overall health and well-being. If you want to learn more about becoming a great place to work or 34 Strong's signature Leading Strong programs, simply go to 34strong.com, where you will also be able to access resources you can start using immediately and stay connected with us. I want to thank you for sharing this episode with everyone you know who will benefit. Be sure to subscribe through your favorite podcasting channels, and please leave us a review. A big shout out to Wendell Fishman for writing and arranging the tune Aunt Lion for Leading Strong. Remember, everyone deserves a great place to work, and any workplace can be great. You can create culture by intention and design, and change happens with every life you touch. I am Darren Verasamy, here to help you lead strong. Until next time, my friends, I'm out.